Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. Pew, 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 pew. Also, make sure you check your back seat, guys, because today or look behind you. Always look behind you. Because today we are talking about, I'm sorry, I have to stop myself because I wrote a joke in and now I'm looking at the joke and saying this is really bad. But I said we're talking about the deadliest carpool karaoke ever.
It's a great joke.
The 1998 slasher film Urban Legend.
Yay.
Finally, as Jamie gives a big whoop yay because she has talked about this movie for God knows how long. It's been a suggestion for a lot of movies we have watched on this podcast. So super excited that we get to dive into this one full force. Now, this movie is directed by Jamie Blanks and written by Silvio Horta. Read, Nikisha. And this movie stars Jared Leto, Alicia Witt, Rebecca Gayheart, and Tara Reid, just to name a few, on top of this very, very stacked cast. Because, my God, guys, Loretta Devine, absolutely.
Oh, so
All
good.
day.
Joshua Jackson, Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah.
Like, this was
Robert Englund.
Yeah.
Robert Englund, yeah.
Duh. Right, Freddie.
Fantastic. And this is the first installment in the Urban Legend chain of 3, which I think I just realized that there were other movies. And so now I want to watch them. I'm very interested.
This is a smaller chain, though.
I mean, it's fine. I like this one enough to be invested in the other two. So I'll definitely check those out. So obviously heavy spoilers. Obviously heavy spoilers for Urban Legend and probably some urban legends that you might not even heard of before, because I'm sure Jamie has a few that she would love to share and I would love to know. So are there any trigger warnings, Jamie, for this movie?
Yeah, I mean, this is a quintessential slasher, so there are loads of insides on the outside.
Loads.
There's also, this one gets me every time. There is a depiction of an animal dying. It's gross. I hate it. It upsets me. Um, so uh, so that's not a good one. But yeah, a whole bunch of murder, stabbings, blood, guts, screams of being murdered. So a car accident. So if any of this is unsettling to you, maybe try something else. Check something else out. Something where the insides remain inside.
Right, something that's maybe not a slasher horror movie. Perhaps. But before we get into everything that is Urban Legend, our producer Brian has a couple of words. Producer Brian?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Producer Brian here. I just want to remind you to find us on YouTube. Hi, everybody. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, hello.
Hello.
We post all of these with the video on YouTube. You can also subscribe to us wherever you find podcasts. You can find us on social media at Talk Horror Pod, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all the fun places. We're doing a lot of fun, cool stuff there. Come join us there while as you listen to each episode. Again, if you haven't been listening, we're doing for spooky season for October. Each one of us picked a movie. This is Jamie's pick of Urban Legend. And so check out the other ones that I picked and Nikisha picked. But back to you, Nikisha.
Yes. It's always the voices. I love the voices. Great. So I feel like, Brian, you've watched some things. I might have seen something on TikTok before we get into Urban Legend. Tell me what you've been watching this week.
Okay. So this relates a lot to Urban Legend, actually.
Great.
And I had an epiphany this week. Jamie and I, so we're recording this before you're listening to it. So we watched the original Hellraiser.
Hellrager. That's a cool party. I would go
I'll go to
there.
the Hellraiser. Um, we watched Hellraiser for the first time. I'd never seen it because they announced the release of the reboot, which comes out in early October. By the time you're hearing this, you've already probably seen that reboot. We've probably already seen that reboot. For all we know, we'll cover it on this podcast. I don't know. However, we watched the original Hellraiser for the first time, and I did not like it.
Wow.
Have you seen it, Nikisha?
No, I've not seen it either, but I'm interested in you not liking it.
So I put this out to TikTok, and I got a lot of, it was a very positive conversation. No one really came for me or what. One person did, but that's fine.
Right.
But it was a very positive conversation because I basically posed like, I thought the movie was bad. However, people really like it or people really don't like it. I found like there was very little middle ground for meh.
Mm.
But my issue is the special effects, the practical effects are outstanding. Even
Really are.
like really great. I actually think Hellraiser would be a very good movie to do for this podcast, just because it deals with a lot of human behavior and mental health,
Mm-hmm.
a lot. So maybe we should definitely do it. Maybe I'll have a different opinion if I watch it a second time, even though I don't really want to watch it a second time.
Nah, fair.
People also told me that Hellraiser 2 is better than Hellraiser 1, which makes me interested in watching that one.
Okay.
So this is how I feel about Hellraiser. Nobody acts like a human in the movie. Humans aren't being humans. They're not having regular, real conversations with each other. That is probably the dialogue and the screenplay's fault. But they just like interact with each other in like the weirdest way. People really apparently love the book or the short story or the story or whatever it's based on, which I'm sure is very interesting. However, this movie and execution doesn't work for me because I don't believe a lot of the characters' motivations. I don't believe the characters' relationships to each other, and therefore any actions that they take don't work for me. I think
We also don't know where it takes place.
Oh my gosh, it bothered the hell. I don't know where this takes place. She's British. Other people in the community are not. They say she's going back home. And it looks like an old English home. I don't know where it takes place. It bothers me. Maybe I just like need to watch it a second time and like I missed them saying like, I guess we're moving to England. I guess we're moving to Ohio. Like, I don't know.
Yes.
But the point that I'm making is that I think that this movie is brilliant in concept. I love the idea of pain versus pleasure. It's Clive Barker, so you have very similar Candyman vibes to it in terms of that pain versus pleasure. You're kind of caught in the middle. There's a fine line between the two. I love that like Pinhead and the Cenobites, whatever you call them, like really aren't the main antagonists of the movie. Spoiler alert, but like that's the way it's been marketed for years. This is also a staple franchise, a staple chain in the horror world that I'd never watched. And so you have high expectations for it because like, you know, we've watched, recently I watched Halloween for the first time. Recently I watched The Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time. I watched a lot of these slasher movies, Friday the 13th, that I'd never seen before because I'm not a slasher guy growing up. But those movies held up to all the expectations. Hellraiser did not hold up to the expectations. I also think, and outside of the, sorry, I'm going in a rant. This is going to end up being a parlor talk. But I definitely did not feel like this movie was as good as people say it was, because in concept it's awesome. All these thematic elements are amazing. I think the execution is very poor. I don't think it gets across what it wants to get across because I don't think the acting is good, and I don't and I'm talking about for 80s standards. I don't think the acting is good for 80s standards, and like these campy whatevers. I also don't think that the screenplay is very good. I'm sure the book is awesome. I'm sure the book can actually get into kind of this like this you know, this 50 Shades of Grey type of like world and things like that, like this pain and pleasure. I just was so uninterested because I couldn't get into it. But it gave me an epiphany. The epiphany that it gave me is that I have zero nostalgia or attachment to 80s horror movies. 80s horror
Mm.
movies are not what I fell in love with horror from. I appreciate them for what they did to the genre. I love some of the campiness of some of them. I really do. And I appreciate how one of my favorite things about horror movies is how they reflect the times. So you have
Mhm.
satanic panic in the 80s, which we saw in Stranger Things, that relates directly to Hellraiser. You have this idea of like yuppies and like this like specific class of person, the boomers, like growing up and having kids and whatnot, like in that era, and the money and like the emotion, the relationship they have affect so many of the horror movies we've seen. And the 80s is, I feel like, a huge place where generational aspirations and the gap also started to widen with like Reagan down the trickle down economics from the Reagan
Yeah.
era and stuff like that. So you have all of this stuff to work with. And I love that it's trying to reflect the age of that era and like juxtaposed to what's happening. It's very campy and all that stuff. But this movie didn't execute on a premise that I really enjoyed. So this made me realize that I have no if I haven't seen it as a young kid, I do not care about the 80s movie. Like I watched Night of the Demons, a lot of these 80s movies. Some of the ones that do hold up are like uh, Nightmare on Elm Street
Yeah.
and I think Friday the 13th is 1980,
I
1981,
think right
but
at the
that still feels like a 1970s movie. That doesn't feel
right.
like an 80s movie to me. The other ones
Mhm.
do, and I've watched a couple of those, which I'm posting on TikTok. My watch through of those and Nightmare on Elm Street with Jamie. But I know I'm beleaguering this point, but the point is that I watched Urban Legend, a movie from 1998 that is bad. I loved it. I loved it because that is my sweet spot. Growing up watching
Mhm.
Scream and all these 90s movies. Honestly, even Candyman, which is like 91, 92, still
Yeah.
feels
Mhm.
like an early 90s movie and actually doesn't feel like a carryover from the 80s. It does in some ways, but it feels more 90s. Like these like I know what you did last summer and
Mhm.
Screams and all of these 90 movies. That's my wheelhouse, and I can watch any of them and get enjoyment out of them because I have nostalgia for that type of filmmaking, that type of like Gen X like filmmaking, if you will.
That's fair. Yeah.
Whereas I don't care about 80s horror, which is like unfortunate because like that's like a lot of people's favorite like genre, 80s horror, and like but I
Mhm.
would much rather watch a horror movie from the 70s, this like avant-garde, like super cool, like I love when we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I loved it. It was spectacular.
Yeah.
I love the original Halloween, but like you get into the 80s schlock and it's like not for me unless I watched it as a kid. Like I love the Toxic Avenger. I love Monster Squad, obviously, but I watched those things growing up.
Mhm.
I'm just realizing that like that is not my flavor of horror movie.
Yeah, that's
It has
fair.
to be made very well or kind of like stand out in a way. And Hellraiser was a perfect example of this is an awesome movie for like what they were trying to convey in the 80s and like what they were trying to do at the time, but like I just can't get into it because I have no nostalgia for this type of filmmaking. That has been Parlor Talk with Brian on that has been my Hellrager.
Come, sit, have a drink. It's parlor talk.
That's what it is. Hellrager isn't a party. Hellrager is how I feel about Hellraiser.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry.
Uh,
I know I just like steamrolled that, and I know that Jamie didn't enjoy it either. Perhaps she has something else that I didn't cover.
No, I think you said a lot of things. But no, I think it just wasn't for me, and that's okay. And
yeah,
there are a lot of
absolutely.
there's other things of that time period that I have more nostalgia for that I can get behind. This
Yeah.
just wasn't one of them. And there's 10 of these. So I'm just like, it's
Yikes.
obviously for other people. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, with that, let's get into the plot summary of Urban Legend.
Oh, I will
Let's
say,
deep dive
sorry.
it.
I will
Yeah.
say I love Sleepaway Camp aside from how it
Oh
treats
yeah.
like aside from the twist and how it like represents transgender people in today's world and just how it puts certain like things on them, I still love the hell out of like the no pun intended the campiness of Sleepaway Camp.
Yes.
um so I guess that's a I don't know. Maybe that just leans more into the camp of it. I guess I appreciate ones
That's
that
what I
lean
was
into
gonna
the camp
say.
as opposed to like trying to be serious in an 80s style of filmmaking.
Yes.
Mm.
Does that okay?
That makes a lot of sense though, because the more that people are into the camp and the acting is camp, then you can get on the ride a little easier
Yeah,
and
that's a good
get through it.
description. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Cool.
Back to plot. Plot. Name the
Plot.
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 Blah 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 blah
Plot.
blah.
Plot. Plot.
What's the plot?
I think it's Jamie, you know,
Mm.
to give a 2-minute plot summary of the wonderful urban legend. Are you ready, Jamie?
Oh, I was born to give this plot summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
All right. Here we go. 2 minutes on the clock. Tell us, Jamie, what's urban legend about?
So Michelle is riding her car in a rainstorm and stops at a gas station. And this guy is trying to help her, but she is afraid of him, so she drives away. Turns out there's a killer in her back seat, and she gets decapitated. Cut to Pendleton University,
Mhm.
an esteemed college in Maine. I think is what we realized. There's a whole bunch of students, Jared Leto, Rebecca Gayheart, all of them, they're
Mhm.
all hanging out. They're all talking about the murder, and Natalie seems distressed. Later, we find out she knew Michelle. She's hanging out with what's his face from I Don't Wanna Wait, and he tries to make a move. He goes out to pee because she rejects him. The murderer gets him, hangs him. And then she's in the car and she hears the ee on the roof of the car. And then she drives away. And it turns out that he's connected to the car. And so she, like, kind of inadvertently kills him. She goes back to the school and everyone's like, oh, yeah, he had plans. It's fine. She
Hmm.
goes into her room and her goth roommate is having sex. So she doesn't turn on the light earlier. And then another time where she's going back into the room, but it turns out she's not having sex. She's being murdered. She also is bipolar, but also God, I don't know. I have a lot of feelings
Mhm.
about that. So she wakes up and
30
then there's
seconds.
blood on the wall, and it's like, oh, are you glad you didn't turn on the lights? Everyone gets murdered by urban legends, pop rocks and bathroom chemicals. The dog gets blown up in the microwave. It's so sad. The screaming in the song, the screaming happens on the radio station. Tara Reid, oh my God. Long story short, everyone else gets murdered. Natalie finds out that Rebecca Gayheart is the murderer because she got into a car accident. Her boyfriend got into a car accident because of the lights flashing gang initiation thing. But then she gets killed.
Yes.
And that's the plot.
There's a lot that is going on that
So
is
much.
very much plot driven that you do have to kind of cover. So good job to you, Jamie. That was not an easy task for sure.
Yeah, I didn't
Or
do Pendleton University justice, but
does she doesn't die at the end, we find out.
oh yeah.
Oh, right.
Dun-dun-dun.
She's still alive at another university in the Northeast because that's just where murders happen.
Yeah,
Yep.
In
All
colleges
the
in the
supposed
Northeast.
with college kids who don't look like college kids.
Oh my
Always.
God, everyone at the end looked like they were 40. That was
My
wild.
God. Well, let's get into our first segment, likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So tell me your relationship with the movie and then give me your likes and gripes. Jamie, you want to go first since this is your
Sure.
movie?
It's mine.
It is yours.
So you'll be shocked to hear that there
Mm,
was once a time where I couldn't do this movie, like terrified.
mm,
Um my so as I've mentioned before, when I was a wee tot, I was
mm.
terrified of scary movies. Like couldn't do the trailers on TV, like would just give me nightmares and send me into a tizzy. So of course I had a very close friend growing up. His name is Danny. And he would make me watch all of these freaking scary movies, and I hated it. And I think he just liked to watch me be very upset at watching them.
Aw.
Anyway, so he brought Urban Legends over on VHS. For those of you who don't know what that is, we used to watch films. It was this black box,
I'm
and then
obsessed.
inside it had like a, like a tape. Well, I guess tape cassette. You might not also know what that is.
Well, if you watched Urban
Anyway,
Legend, you know what it is.
Oh,
yes.
right, right.
Um, but yeah, so he like brought this over to my house, made me watch it. I like couldn't. It just like scared the crap out of me. And then once I like got over my fear of scary movies when I was older, I revisited this and I was like, oh my god, this movie is excellent. I like, speaking of nostalgia, I have so much nostalgia for this movie.
Mhm.
Having once been terrified and then like just enjoying it. So I've seen this many a times, and I like this plot. I like the idea of using the urban legends to drive the story, because like these are things that you hear about in other contexts. So like I like that they're taking, I think it is trying to build this connection to the movie, and like that's my favorite thing about it. Like I feel like people can get into it because they've probably heard these urban legends before,
Mhm.
whether they've heard them in the same way of like, oh, my cousin's niece's best friend's boyfriend's ex died this way, and it's like you don't have that connection to the person, but like you somehow know of someone who's experienced this, and that connects you back to the larger story. So I
Mhm.
appreciate that, like that's kind of at the core, and then they make a schlocky horror film out of it. So I love this. I also like forgot that Jared Leto is in it in the rewatch. I don't know how my brain compartmentalized that, so that was
Yeah.
exciting. It didn't even like look like him. Like he was so young in this that
Mhm.
it still didn't quite look like him. And I think this was off of his uh
My
um
So-Called Life.
yes, thank you.
Well, I didn't
Where he
recognize
was
him
Mm.
still a
because
wee baby.
he didn't have damage tattooed across their head.
Oh, right. He
Yikes.
also wasn't a vampire.
Oh,
With that.
right.
Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe Jared Leto was you know, not that when doing this, hopefully.
Mhm.
I also really like that I love this final girl because she's like very competent and smart, and like is I mean, she's coming to these conclusions, and like other people aren't necessarily listening to her, which is frustrating, but like I think she's like able to kind of put all these pieces together, but also she's carrying this secret that like no one else knows, which is why she's able to put the puzzle pieces together. But like
Yeah.
I just think that she's a very strong and like strong-willed, clever final girl. Not that other final girls aren't, but some of it I feel like is often like the context of the situation that they're put in. And I think that she's like mostly, and also like very compassionate for the people around her, which also ends up being her downfall. But yeah, I really appreciate her. I really appreciate Tara Reid in this movie. I feel like there was
Mhm.
like a prime Tara Reid acting
Era?
time.
Yes.
Yeah, this was it.
Yes.
Um, uh, Josie and the
That's
Pussycats
exactly what I was
also it.
thinking.
Um,
That's like
yeah,
the
so like
greatest movie of all time.
I really like her in this, even though like she's not in it for a whole lot, but I do. I also think it's just like very funny that she's giving like sex advice on a college campus. Like
Mhm.
probably 9-year-old me watching this for the first time had no idea what was going on. I was way more scared of like the killer than I was like paying attention to any of that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, like all of these people, this is like peak this time period, all of these actors in this. So like it just really brings me back to the nostalgia of like late 90s, early 2000s. I also love this killer. I like kind of like how we get there, even though it also is like complete nonsense. Also,
Mhm.
as a mental health professional, like it's just totally nonsensical. But I think that I think Rebecca Gayheart plays it really well. I know we also saw her in Scream 2,
Mhm.
and yeah, like I just also like that's her natural hair at the end. Um,
Work.
Yeah, they apparently, like, straighten it for most of the other scenes in, like, the first 2/3 of the movie before the
Mm-hmm.
reveal, and then they, like, let her natural hair show for they thought that if they just had her, her natural hair throughout the whole thing, it would, like, be more obvious that she was the killer,
Because she has
which I
curly
thought was
hair.
really interesting, and I was like, "What are you trying to say about, like, curly-haired people?"
Right.
Um,
You frizzy
but
hair,
I
you
do
crazy. Frizzy hair, you crazy.
Right.
Oh no! But yeah, I do. I think that she's really good. I just love this movie. There's not that much that I'm gonna complain about, other than the fact that, like, yeah, maybe people aren't really making smart decisions. They're just, like, explaining things away without any concrete evidence. Like, they're just like, oh yeah, um, what's his face is Joshua Jackson's not here because, like, he's on a ski trip, and, like, no one, like, she goes to check, but, like, nobody else, bats an eyelash. And I don't
Right.
know if that's because, like, people, young people in college are, like, so egocentric, not in a mean way, but just, like, you're young, and, like, you're only thinking about yourself, so you're not necessarily thinking about, and that makes sense for, like, development purposes. You're not necessarily thinking that, like, something else could be going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how much of it is just, like, that, and young people brain not being fully developed and making bad choices because, like, that's what they're inclined to do, or because, like, truly these humans are not making, like, human choices.
Yeah.
So I don't really know, but I'd like to think it was the former, because I like this movie too much to
Of
have
course.
anything mean to say about it. But yeah, I don't really think I gave too many gripes there. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's likes and gripes, You can do whatever you want. um I This is my second time watching this movie. I watched it for the first time a couple of months ago because it popped up on my For You on Hulu. And I remember texting our group chat and saying, "Oh my God, Urban Legends is on Hulu. I'm about to watch it," because Jamie
So
has just
excited.
been like talking about it for so long. And so I just sat and I watched it, and I was just smiling the whole time. And I think, Brian, I'm glad that you had your parlor talk, because I think the reason why I like this movie so much is because 90s horror is my nostalgia.
Mm,
And so everything about, or just the 90s in general. I won't even say horror. If it's 90s, was the peak time of my life.
sure.
And so I feel
Whoa, whoa,
that
whoa, whoa, whoa. You're starring in Hamilton right now. Don't tell me that the peak of your life was watching Scream in, like Birmingham, Alabama.
listen, okay, Mobile, Alabama
Sorry, sorry,
first.
sorry, 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 sorry.
But I will say, I just remember a simpler time
Sure.
when it was actually cold in October, and I would
Mm.
go trick or treating, and I would have my outfits, and my sister would make me watch all the Chucky movies, and I didn't want to watch them, but I did, watching Hocus Pocus, and so that calms me because I just remember that calming feeling. And so when I watch stuff of that nature, it's just like my anxiety is all right. We're calm because we've seen this place before.
Wait,
So I don't.
Nikisha,
Yes.
I'm obsessed with that description because
Oh,
this movie calmed me down. Like, not that I was like in a crazy place,
yeah.
but like there's something about that 90s slasher movie that's a clear ripoff of Scream, whether it's this
Yes.
or I Know What You Did Last Summer. And there are a ton more that really, even early 2000s, that really like
Mm-hmm.
internally changed something in me where I feel like we just watched Trick or Treat last night and I got that same
Mm.
feeling just of like that Halloween night and like all of that I
Yes.
kind of get from that. I just got goosebumps from your description. Like
Yeah.
and you knocked it out of the park. I just needed to commend you on that one. You fucking
Well,
nailed it.
thank you. Thank you. Yes. But it's true, and I don't know the psychology of that, but it's true when you have such a remembrance of something, no matter how old you are, if that feeling comes back in any kind of capacity, you just feel like, okay, yeah, everything is good. This is great. And so this is what I felt watching this movie. I watched it again last night, and I also think that it's great. I also think that this will probably be in my canon of things to watch pre-Halloween now, or that I would get, other people to watch with me as like, yeah, let's get ready for Halloween, because I love the fashion, of course, 90s fashion, everything about it. The fact that Tara Reid is running in fucking platform
Oh my
boots,
god.
and I just was screaming at the screen like, "Girl, take those off, please, so you can fucking run." But anyway, I love how sex positive it is too. Just to see that and watch it. Because if I was watching it younger, like Jamie said, I probably would have missed all that. And I just love that, like Jamie also said, anyone can relate to it because someone has heard of these, or one of these urban legends. And I didn't realize how many were just kind of in the back of my brain that I didn't realize I knew until I watched this movie. And I thought, oh my God, I've definitely heard of this before, because specifically remember my parents talking about the gang initiation and the headbeam lights
Mhm.
thing. And it's just so crazy how all of this stuff can navigate through our generation, no matter what part of the country you're in. You've heard of all these things. It's great. I definitely want an encyclopedia of urban legends, though. I need that as like a coffee table book. So if anyone wants to sponsor, get us 3 books, please. Thank you. uh I think that what is Rebecca Gayheart? Love her acting. I think that she's wonderful as this character, especially at the end. Like literally in my notes, I put Brenda is acting in all caps. And I also put some dumb decision making, but I still enjoyed it. And I think it's all goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time, is just the nostalgia for the 90s, and it's really wonderful. So, and Loretta Devine again, I love
Oh my
anything that she's
gosh.
in. And it was so fucking dramatic when she got shot and like flipped her whole body over the table at the
Oh my
end.
god.
I was like, and
Yes.
that's really extreme, because that gun would not have done that much, to knock you off your feet like that. But okay. Uh yeah. So I've loved everything about it. I really don't have that many gripes as well, mostly because it was just a great 90s slasher film. Brian?
Both of you covered most of it. I just have a couple other points here. Some likes. I thought the opening sequence is spectacular. I love a spooky gas station. It was only $1.14 for gas, so that was
Oh
a
god.
like. The total eclipse of the heart, bad singing, carpool karaoke was awesome.
So
Brad Dourif
funny.
showing up was awesome. I love the cameos in this movie. But that opening was truly excellent. When he yells at her
Mhm.
like there's someone in the back seat, like my heart was like pounding, because
Yeah.
I'm gonna repeat the same thing that you two just said. I was invested because I also had heard all of these urban legends. So it's just like, wait, I thought that just happened to a kid in my town. Like in my, you
Of
know what I mean?
course.
Totally.
Yes.
Or even just like scary stories at like a cast party. Like and
Mhm.
it turned out that it was her boyfriend's toenails on the top of the car, like stuff like that. Um, so I love that. Another like, I love a good student amateur reporter. Just always being like,
Absolutely.
listen, can I just interview you quickly? I know we're friends, but can I get this on the record, off the record? Um,
That's an
uh,
incredible voice.
um, man, walking in on your roommate having sex and then just like sleeping there with your CD player in, like that. I'm glad that that's set up, the urban legend of like someone being killed in the room and whatnot, but like that's a bit much. But I'm
I
sure it
love it.
happens
No
all the
sock on
time
the
in
door. Like
college.
no sock on the door.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm
gosh,
thinking.
you're being
I
rude. Come
think
on
that,
now.
yes, I agree. I think that her roommate was at fault for not having some sort of a system where your sock
Yes.
is on the door or something like that. Um,
Yes.
fantastic. Also, the main character, Alicia Witt, or whatever her name is
Mhm.
also in Mr. Holland's Opus, and I love Mr. Holland's Opus, so that's a like.
Oh.
Um, uh, okay, like, greatest line in the whole movie. Quote, you should check her pulse. She's looked like that for years. Yes, the
Ugh,
appropriate thing to say when someone in your dorm is being wheeled out dead.
So
Um,
awful.
crazy.
my like was that I was on the same wavelength as this movie, from the cassette players in the car to the CD man, like the walk CD or CD man or whatever it was, the disc man, excuse me.
Mhm. Mhm.
The middle Hanson brother comment, Zoot Suit Riot, Martha Stewart Living, all of these movies, all of these references, like gave me life.
Yeah.
Another quote. They mentioned that she was bipolar, or she was on lithium or whatever it was. The dean or whoever is mentioning that to her, and she goes, and Lucia goes, she painted the room black. I had a feeling.
Oh my gosh.
um,
And just to that point, she saw the bottle of lithium. So it's like, why would that be the first thing you say? It's like, oh, she
totally.
painted her room black. You could have been like, oh no, I saw her medication. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd put two and two together. Anyway, keep going.
Gaslighting. I like the idea that the massacre doesn't have to be true for the killer to do what they did with urban legends and stuff like that. And however, it doesn't matter because it was true. Um, I like how it was kind of like indirect gaslighting, where people weren't necessarily lying to her because no one said like things didn't happen or whatnot. But like also she was figuring it out because she had extra pieces of information, so it felt like
Mhm.
gaslighting. I guess it could be considered gaslighting as well. I have a quote from Too Damn Long. I don't remember what that part of the movie that's from, but I remember someone saying too damn long and I was laughing. um they're the Pendleton Lumberjacks. I like that. um
No, you said, "Can I want a T-shirt that
yeah,
says
I
that."
want a Pendleton Lumberjacks t-shirt, like the swim team.
Yes.
um The backstory is wild and feels out of nowhere, but I love it. That feels very 90s movie.
Yeah.
Likes and gripes at the same time. Leg injuries.
Ooh,
Like
Mm.
cutting
woof.
Achilles under. That's
Mm.
that's the urban legend that I hate the most because I've seen it in a
Yes.
lot of horror movies. And that's one that always gets me no matter what. Um,
Mm-mm.
Yep.
Here it's light. I don't know what that's from. Gripe. There is no way that entire huge building on campus where the massacre happened would not be refurbished and still used. In a
Oh
historic
yeah.
university like that, the building would absolutely be dorms or classrooms or something. That's not believable. That's a gripe, but I love it.
Mm.
Um, why? When Brenda is screaming why at her
The end.
is spectacular.
Love that.
Oh, and she also says, I'm a little nutty. And she also says, she also, instead of saying urban legend, says UL. And I was obsessed with that.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
because
she's
we
like
had
my
this.
favorite, one of my favorite ULs.
Yeah,
Oh,
one of my
okay.
favorite ULs. Great. Love that she, very Adam's Family Values. Again, another 90s movie where she has a full slideshow to tell her how she enacted her
Mhm,
plan.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Truly spectacular. Like, what kind of friend are you? Another, all of her lines in that reveal. I want to watch this again. I fucking loved this movie.
Yes.
Um, I like that it starts and ends with the same urban legend. Like we are now in tune with the urban legends, and we're like yelling at them, like, "Oh my god, she's in the back seat!" Like I love that. Got me very engaged. Um, these kids are so old. The big hair is crazy. And here's my major gripe about this movie. I do not remember that puffy coat being popular enough that 3 people in this movie had it. 4 people. The killer had it. Robert Englund had it. The another like the creepy janitor. The creepy janitor had it, and the girl at the swim
The
practice
swimmer.
had
Yeah.
it. Who
Mhm.
I listen, I know jackets are popular. Like there's that one from Amazon that's very popular, winter coat right now or whatever it is. Like I get it. But like how many people were going to like, I don't know, what was popular in the late 90s? Like
I don't know, or like a North Face jacket or something.
yeah, like the
That's
Northern
popular,
Jackets. Like,
Brandon.
I guess it's
Yeah.
believable, but I don't remember. Everyone, maybe it was a giveaway from the university or something like that. But my final like is that it reminded me of my love for urban legends and like like at sleepaway camp, my sleepaway camp, like Cropsy, or that like someone escaped from the local mental institution. There's no local mental institution,
Mhm.
and like be careful in the
Mhm.
woods and all of that stuff. Like I had a lot of like memories flood up because of that. Um, I another like I like that this is a ripoff of Scream. I like that this is a ripoff of I Know What You Did Last Summer. The director has even gone on record, said that he got the screenplay for Scream, really wanted to direct it, but obviously lost out to Wes Craven, and then got the I Know What You Did Last Summer screenplay and really wanted to direct that and got close, but didn't get that. So then they got this screenplay. So you can feel how this is like I would buy the 3 of those movies in like a 90s like slasher 3-pack.
That's like the best pack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Which is like, I guess, spoiling our suggestions at the end. But
Yep.
Oh, it's
I
fine.
just absolutely loved this movie. And I
Mhm.
recognize that when we get to Rotten Tomatoes, I have no idea what it's, I mean, I know, but like it could be anything. But like,
Mhm.
I recognize that this is actually is not a great movie overall, but I fill in the blanks with greatness because of like, you know, like if someone's asked me like, should I watch Urban Legend or Scream? Like, I'm never gonna pick Urban Legend over like Scream. I might not even pick it over I Know What You Did Last Summer, which we have to rewatch for this because I haven't watched it in a
Have
long time.
to. Have to.
Yeah, but like, man, I this movie was great. My first time watching it, I can't believe I'd never seen it, and I'm obsessed with it, and I can't wait to watch it
Oh, I didn't know
again.
this was your first time watching
No,
it.
I had never watched it before.
Oh
I
my
just hadn't. Yeah,
god.
sorry, I should have opened with that. I loved
Oh,
it.
great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel so validated that everybody had so much fun watching this, and
It's
like
yes.
the sense of relief that I feel is overwhelming.
But I'm curious to see what what the numbers would look like for maybe Gen Zers watching
sure.
this
Mm.
movie as opposed to our generation, as opposed to boomers or whoever, and seeing if they feel the same. I mean, Brian said it's not a super great movie, but I think the context and the acting outweighs a lot of the ripping off aspect of it, and you still have a good time. I don't know. I guess I'm just saying, I feel like people could still have a good time even if they're not 90s babies like we are and love
Mhm.
kind of the 90s aesthetic of everything just based on. And I'm also curious to know, do people even tell urban legends anymore? Like, is that still happening at summer camps or sleepaway
Sure.
camps,
I mean, I did want to ask if you guys know of any other urban legends that were not depicted in this.
Hi, you stole my question. I was going to ask that too. I don't
Ah!
know, but Jamie, do you have one that's
I
not in this
do.
movie? Yeah, tell me.
I do. Do you know about the the licked hand one? The dogs licking hands.
Yes, only because you told us that in
Oh,
another
did I?
episode. That's the only reason why I know, because
That's
it's
like the
like,
only other one that I can think of off the top of my head that I remember. But
well, tell
for those
the
that
people
didn't
might not know.
listen,
Yeah.
yes. It's this person's at home alone with their dog. And then apparently like on the news, wherever people are getting their news, she finds out that there's a killer loose in the neighborhood. So she locks all the things, and goes to bed and takes her dog with her into the room, and goes to bed, and then she wakes up in the middle of the night and hears like a dripping sound, but she's like too afraid to get out of bed, and so she like reaches down for her dog, and her dog starts licking her to like make her feel more comfortable, and she goes back to bed. The next morning, she wakes up and goes into the bathroom and finds that her dog is dead and there's blood all over the place. And then on the mirror or the shower wall, it says humans can lick too.
I
Mm.
don't like that one at all.
Terrifying. No, I know. I'm like, I gotta hug Ted a little tighter.
A little tighter and never oh,
Ah, he's
Teddy,
so
Teddy.
sleepy.
Oh, that's also
Um,
why you can't be on your bed with limbs out in
Oh
the public.
yeah, because like the monsters under your bed
Cover it
will
up.
get you, but also like a weird person might lick you.
Exactly. You just never know. Either way, keep it inside the covers, guys.
Mm-mm.
We don't need
like
we don't need you being
like
licked.
do in terms of other urban legends, does like the Jersey Devil count?
I do not know what that is.
Oh, that's like it's like a creature. Like urban legends are just like folklore, like the crossover between the two. So
Okay.
like localized folklore, I feel like would fall under that bucket, but it's
Mhm.
just like a creature that lives in what the Pine Barrens, I think,
Oh.
in New Jersey.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um and like, looks like has like devilish features, and people say that they've seen him flying around.
Okay. Mm-mm.
There's a lot of like weird folklore. Are you familiar at all with like the Weird New Jersey series?
No.
Oh yeah, there's like a whole they like had like a whole magazine. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure they have a website if I check it, but like it's like a whole thing just about like creepy. Oh, there was one. The closest one was in the town, like a town or a few near mine, and it was like the 13 bumps or 13 witches or something like that. And there
Mm.
was a road that was like very close. And when you're driving, you can like feel the bumps in the road, and there's 13 of them, supposedly for 13 witches that were killed and buried there. And they just happened to build a road there.
That's doesn't seem like the smartest decision. What? That's like peak people not peopling, because why? Why would you ever, if you knew, or even if it was just like not even a dead body, like if it was just, but if somebody said, oh yeah, there's dead bodies there, why would you build a road there? Just leave it alone. Like,
Yeah.
so many things would be solved if people would just leave shit alone. Please.
Unclear, but I did find it, and it's in Watchung, New Jersey for anybody that's interested.
Okay. Well, the what I've been seeing around TikTok is on the American Horror Stories anthology
Mm.
series.
Hmm.
There's a Bloody Mary one,
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently that's super intense. I don't know how much it's actually related to the quote unquote actual story, because I haven't watched the episode, but
sure.
that's been floating around. So if you want to get like a little urban legend snippet,
Mm.
maybe 30-40 minute snippet, watch the American Horror Story thing. But fantastic. Ryan, do you know any?
I mean, Cropsy from camp was a little bit similar to Bloody Mary in a way. You also had uh, the escaped convict from the insane asylum. I forget his name. That would
Mm.
come to camp. But also, do you remember the one? I don't remember it in full, but there's one where like somebody escaped from a mental institution dressed as a clown, and then the babysitter was over checking, like heard something from the attic, and um like saw all the, so like there were weird mannequins in the attic, and one was a clown, and then she like turned around and checked and the clown wasn't there anymore, or it's something, or like maybe they were like frozen, like they like, I don't remember, but there was something about like checking the attic, there was a clown there, and then there wasn't a clown there, or something like that, like,
Hmm.
and we find
Mm.
out that like that the person had been hiding in the attic dressed as a clown, pretending to be a mannequin so they wouldn't get caught, or something like that. That's all I got.
Oh my gosh. That sounds like a weird mesh of like a whole bunch of other
Yeah,
movies I've
like A
seen.
Stranger Calls,
Yeah.
Black Christmas, and like a couple
Yeah.
others
Hmm.
and stuff like that. But yeah, I remember that one for some reason. There's also like Sasquatch. I guess, does that count as an urban legend, or is that like I don't know.
Or just like a
Yeah,
folklore type thing.
that's a
So,
good question. What
that's
about all of those like murdering clowns in like 2016?
oh yeah.
Oh.
Like, does that count? Did they actually murder anyone, or are we just like led to believe that they murdered people? And so that inherently then becomes its
Mm.
own urban legend.
I don't know. Also, what the Thin Man, Slip Man, or
Slender
whatever?
Man.
Slender Man. Yeah,
Mm.
the
He's very
Thin
thin.
Man. That's from Charlie's Angels.
Oh,
Remember?
creepy thin
Creepy
man.
Thin Man.
Well,
Yeah, who like takes their hair. Very
Yes.
creepy. I hated that.
the Thin Man is also the Thin Man is also like a 1930s like romance mystery like chain.
Oh. No,
Anyway,
no.
that's neither here nor there. Nikisha, do you know other urban legends?
I don't. And like I said before, there were some that I forgot that I knew until I watched this movie,
Mm,
and it was especially like you said, Brian, the one with underneath the car and slashing the ankles, that gets me
every time.
Ugh.
every
No,
time. There's
thank
also
you.
this really great TikTok of this woman, and I don't know what the premise was, but every time she gets into her car, she doesn't even look back. She just pulls her seat back and like elbows the back seat. So if someone is
Oh,
there,
I
she
saw
like
that.
knocks them out.
Yeah, yeah. Did you send that to Jamie and she showed it to me, or because Jamie
I don't
showed me one where
know.
it's a woman like putting her seat all the way back, or like like turning off the
Yes.
lights in her house and like making sure, like,
Mm.
I forget. It's very funny.
Yes. But I love stuff like that.
Wait,
Uh,
but do you want to know the best thing about, speaking of urban legend, or I guess this in particular?
yes.
Apparently, they're talking about making a new one.
Yes, yes, yes.
But because this is what I was going to say before, it's going to be focused on like the digital age because now you have
Mm-hmm.
things like creepy pastas, which is like kind of what Slenderman is.
Okay.
Creepy pastas are like other spooky stories that like kind of existed on the internet and then like
Mm-hmm.
continue to get told. But yeah, it's like there's also all kinds of stories that are creepypastas that are turned into movies on their own.
Mm.
Um, like I think Antlers is a creepypasta,
Oh, we need
or
to
like
watch
started
that.
as one.
Nice.
But I'm really excited because like yeah, I think we hear less and less of these types of urban legends, and now it's just like how does the existence of the internet like continue to share news
Mm-hmm.
stories and like how they get told in with a more contemporary lens.
Mm.
So I
Yeah,
personally am very excited to see whatever this ends up being, and I hope it's good.
I'm
Oh,
sure it'll be great.
and
Yes.
Nikisha, one last thing. Loretta Devine
Mhm.
is in Urban Legends 2, Final Cut, or whatever it's called.
Then I have to. Great. Even more incentive because I think they're all on Hulu now, or at least I saw another. I don't know if this is the one you're talking about, Brian, but maybe the
Mm.
third one was up. I don't know. But either way, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
the
find
third one's
them all
like
and watch them.
Urban Legend 3, Bloody Mary, or something like that.
Yeah, that's the one
Yeah,
that I saw on
with Kate
Hulu.
Mara.
Yeah. And the second
Random.
one
Yes.
has what's her name from Jennifer Morrison from Once Upon a Time and House.
Oh,
Mm.
yes. Yes. Love her. Grand. Well, shall we get into our brains section of this movie?
Brains.
Hmm.
Yes. Uh so many things. And there was one thing you mentioned, Jamie, that you I don't know, something that you were about to say about like mental health, how somebody was reacting to something, and maybe it'll come up when we go this, but I
Oh,
wanted
was
you to
it
dive
related to
deeper.
the like bipolar thing? Because like
Yeah, yes, yes, yes,
that
yes.
was all stupid. Yeah,
Yeah.
like goth people aren't bipolar.
Yes.
That's all that really needs to be said.
Okay,
Like
right.
goth people aren't inherent. Like just because you're goth does not mean you're bipolar.
Yes.
You could be bipolar. You could struggle with bipolar and then also be goth. But it's like this does not compute 100%. That was so
Right.
silly and annoyed me.
Yeah, you should check her pulse. She's looked like that for years.
That was gross. That was like truly the most obscene thing that I've
Super.
heard in a very long time. I mean, that's not true, but like that I can recall from my poor
Mhm.
short-term memory. But like, what a gross, terrible, awful thing to say. If they're implying that she's like suicidal, then like
Right.
maybe they also should have like supported her instead of make terrible comments.
Gosh. Well, to that point, we always talk about fight, flight, and freeze and stuff when we're in danger. And how these people were reacting to death seemed a little not human behavior esque. So my question is, and this is probably just a very generalized and random question, but is there something like fight, flight, or freeze for when you do come in contact with like a dead body or you see death before you? Like, we have some people that make those awful jokes, like you just said, or there are some people who don't say anything, or, whatever the case may be. So, is there something like that in adjacent?
Yeah. I mean, I wonder like if it's less about fight or flight because it's not necessarily adrenaline, but more of
Hmm.
just like like experiencing a crisis. Like I would
Okay.
say that like a murder on a college campus would be a crisis to everybody who's like on that campus, whether
Hmm.
they have a relationship with that person or not, because it's still like, oh, someone died. There's a murderer, but potentially, and like how that might impact somebody's mental health. And
Yeah.
maybe you do have people, using humor as a defense mechanism because the idea of there being a murderer is like too terrifying to deal with.
Really
Although again,
process.
I
Yeah.
don't think that like
Not with the other girl.
excuses
Yeah.
this awful comment. But yeah, it makes me think of more of uh like when there's a crisis, which is like a short term like event that causes a significant amount of distress,
Hmm.
how it's different from fight or flight because there's like the immediate thing that you're like in danger of. Where like in this situation, I don't think they're like all these students are immediately in danger, but maybe they're all just like processing, a trauma in a shared trauma in different ways. Some
Right.
people might be quieter and like insular and withdraw. Some people might act out. Yeah, so like hopefully they can bring in some crisis counselors.
One of my favorite things that we do here, and I'm happy that we have the moment to do it on this episode, is it a Billy or a Stu? Stew as in stir the pot.
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Yeah, it's a scream, baby.
Billy or Stu?
So let's talk about Brenda. And Jamie, tell me, is she a Billy or a Stu?
All right. So
What you think?
Billy is the psychopath and Stu is the sociopath.
Yes.
But Brenda is undoubtedly a Billy. She orchestrates this whole thing. Also, how much research did she have to do into urban legends? I meant to say something while we were watching it, but I didn't want to reveal anything. We should go back because I didn't know this and see if that urban legend book also had been taken out by Brenda, because you see that it was taken out last
by Damon.
But I don't remember if her name comes up too. But like, yeah, the lengths that she went through to organize all of this. Also, like when Damon is killed, she like fully makes the car disappear and his body and car tracks. Like, how does she do all of that in that period of time? Like,
how is she strong enough to carry the guys?
I don't know if it's like strength. I mean, some of it has to be strength. Like the brains, like
adrenaline.
She's smart.
She had
adrenaline.
A PowerPoint presentation of her killings.
Is great.
So definitely psychopath, definitely on the Billy train. My God.
Woo, woo. I would also say that I'm checking it right now. I just have to get through the Hulu ad. But she also could have manipulated Damon into taking that book out so that she can kind of look into it. But also, like, you'd think that she would have planned these things before the school started. Also, why now? Why sophomore year? Why, you know what I mean? Like, did it take her that? Maybe it took her that long to plan it. I don't know, but like,
because they say Natalie was on probation for a year because of the reckless endangerment charge.
Yeah.
So would she waited till she was off probation?
I think so. That's my understanding.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
I love it.
Fantastic. Well, are we ready to Rotten Tomatoes this movie?
Oh, I am ready to Rotten Tomatoes this.
Oh, no.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Like all right, really what do you two think this has on Rotten Tomatoes?
There's no way the critics cared for this movie.
No.
So I'm going to go low, which breaks my little heart.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with like a 42.
Yeah,
I was gonna say 40. I'll stick with 40.
All right, this has a 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 37% when it comes to a 37% when it comes to audience score. And let's go into
guys.
What did you say?
No, I just said please, guys. Why? But anyway, keep going.
Elements of Scream reappear in a vastly inferior vehicle. That's it. I don't think that's wrong, but I still that could be correct, and I can still enjoy it.
Right. Mm-hmm. It can still be a great movie because it is.
It is.
Fantastic.
Right. Are we ready for the 4 S's?
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horror's 4 S's.
Okay, the 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We are going to talk through all these, give them a 1 through 10. And let's start with you, Nikisha. What are your rankings for this?
Skulls, I'll give it a 5 because of her master plan. Scares, I'll give it a 3. It wasn't scary, but it's just the remembering all of the legends when I was young that makes it scary. And shakes, I'll give it a 6 because I'm going to remember this and I'm going to watch it multiple times.
Totally. Jamie, what about you?
Yeah, so for Skulls, I gave it a 4 because, I can still like this movie even if I don't think people are peopling in the best in the most realistic way.
Yeah.
For Scares, so like my now score is going to be a 4 just because I've seen it so many times and it
Sure.
doesn't like scare me as much, but I still feel that like nostalgic anxiety when I do watch it, so that's why it's not lower. For Shakes, I'm going to give it an 8 because I love this movie and I'm never going to forget my first time watching it and every subsequent rewatch.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, it does not show that Brenda took it out. In the scene where she checks the card, it only shows Tom Mather, Mac Yeager, and Damon on there. Maybe
Okay.
there's a freeze frame in here. Hold on, I'm going to check it now. This is not exciting for anybody other than us. Colm Jones and J.A. Melvin also took this book out. So this one October 7th of many years beforehand, November 6th, December 2nd, January 11th, and then September 8th is when Damon took it out.
Thank you for doing the research.
Yeah, the
So we don't
encyclopedia,
have to.
the encyclopedia for anyone trying to send us this encyclopedia, it's the Encyclopedia of Urban Legends. The author is Charles S. Breen, and it's in the section Mythos, Folklore, and Legends. Excellent. I'm glad I checked that.
On
Okay,
Amazon.
I'm gonna go with a 3 for mental health and human behavior. I'm just gonna no, I'll give it a 4, like Jamie, because of the like it just got me back into urban legends again, and like it messed with their heads, and I appreciated that. Um, Scares, I'm gonna give it a 3 because the urban legends are spooky, but also I did get got by one jump scare in this.
Oh yeah, you did.
The coat in the professor's like secret room when she sees it, I thought it was a dude and I jumped, and that's just my life. And I'm gonna give this a 7. I had a blast. I wouldn't suggest this over some other slashers, but like, damn, would I suggest this? I'm so happy Jamie kept using this as suggestions, and we finally did it.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
So let's go through our suggestions. Nikisha, why don't you go first?
You already said it. I know what you did last summer, and we absolutely have to do that for this podcast
All right.
because I love it so much.
Cool. Jamie, what's your suggestion?
That was also my suggestion. But again, yeah, Scream, I know you did last summer. Just quintessential late 90s, early 2000s slasher.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was also going to be mine, but I also want to throw out there that some good 90s slashers are also, you know what? I'll also put out there like Happy Death Day.
Oh yeah.
Not 90s,
Yeah.
but I feel like carries on the like the I don't know, the tone, maybe like it's definitely derivative of these. I would probably go with that. I think another good one is probably like The Faculty.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not necessarily a slasher per se, but Faculty falls into this genre that I love, and I only think of Bleachers. Bleachers to me is a band, and the scene in The Faculty. Though that's what I think of when I see Bleachers.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Great.
Fantastic.
Well, I think that wraps up our Urban Legends episode. Thanks for listening, guys. You can follow us on all of the social medias: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube at Talk Horror Pod, POD. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Sure, you can listen to us wherever you find podcasts. So that includes things like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and of course, Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank
thank
you.
Yeah, I should be doing 5 stars, please.
Oh, spooky. Oh, okay. So I do have a quote. This was my favorite quote from this movie.
Yeah.
And it was when Loretta Devine was talking to the dean about Damon's whereabouts. And the dean says, he might be in a motel with a girl or a guy or a farm animal. You were 18 once. And Loretta looks at him and says, not that kind of 18.
Yeah. She is a national treasure.
She is. I love her so much.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.